Sanatan firestorm that we've seen right after comments that were made by Udayanidhi Stalin and then by some within the Congress party as well. Many in the Congress party came out and backed what Udayanidhi Stalin had said. The BJP tagging all of opposition as anti-Hindu. That onslaught has been on for the last 2 to 3 days. Now, the Prime Minister weighing in as well. Let's quickly take you across to what the Prime Minister said today in a closed-door meeting. The Prime Minister was meeting with his Council of Ministers. There were multiple issues on agenda, but this was one of the messages that the Prime Minister sent out. A vocal message, clearest in no uncertain terms as far as what the BJP strategy should be in taking on this entire debate. The Prime Minister was very clear as far as his Council of Ministers went that a strong rebuttal must come to the fore. You should stick to the facts as per the Constitution is what the Prime Minister told his cabinet colleagues. Do not go into history. Just stick to the facts. Just talk about the contemporary part of this issue and let's stick the debate to that is what the Prime Minister have told the Council of Ministers. Need to respond on the Sanatan debate. The response needs to come to the fore strongly is what the Prime Minister told his cabinet colleagues. That meeting happened a few hours ago. The Prime Minister then also went on to talk about how, as far as this entire debate goes, let's not get into history. Let's not try and talk about what has happened decades or centuries ago. Let's talk about what the opposition is doing now. That rebuttal needs to come to the fore more vociferously is what the Prime Minister told his cabinet colleagues, the Council of Ministers. Remember, the fireworks between the opposition and the BJP has continued over the last few days, especially after Udayanidhi Stalin's comments that came to the fore about eradicating Sanatan Dharma. Many within the Congress, especially in the south of India, came out and backed what he was saying. Priyank Kharge was one of them. Both Udayanidhi Stalin and Priyank Kharge now face an FIR against them. But yet, the Congress coming out and backing what Udayanidhi Stalin has said, an issue that has divided the opposition. There are many others who came out and said that they do not agree with it, including Mamata Banerjee. Today, the Prime Minister has weighed in as well. He has spoken to his party members, to his party colleagues, to his cabinet colleagues and sent out this clear message that he will be taking this issue up. The BJP does have to take this more vociferously and the response needs to come to the fore. All of this happened in a closed-door meeting. Aman Sharma, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more perspective on this. Aman, this is interesting how the Prime Minister in a closed-door meeting said, apart from everything else, let's also talk about what is doing the rounds as far as the political narrative goes, and this is something that the BJP and the Council of Ministers need to get into.
Absolutely. See, the Prime Minister's message, I think, is very, very clear that this controversy, if you speak about in contemporary terms, you need to speak about what has the INDI alliance reacted to it. So what is the reaction of the INDI alliance? The Congress has virtually backed the DMK here with Mr. K.C. Venugopal saying that views of everybody we respect in a way. So the largest opposition party in a way is not condemning the DMK statement. I think that is what the Prime Minister is focusing that in contemporary terms, the INDI alliance is divided on this. There is no one cohesive statement by them. And how? I think the attack is also on the DMK, very strongly on the DMK, but the attack is now slowly also of the BJP leaders, if you see their statements carefully, is also shifting to the Congress in a big way. That what is the Congress stand on it? And Poonam, we are heading into 5 state elections in December. 3 of them are heartland Hindi states, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan and Chhattisgarh. Already BJP's top leaders, Mr. Amit Shah, Mr. Rajnath Singh, Mr. JP Nadda, have raised this Sanatan Dharma comment in all 3 states in the Parivartan rallies which were flagged off. They have gone and raised this comment already. This is going to be, I think, the major issue of the BJP in the upcoming state elections, cornering the Congress, because Congress is their main competitor in these 3 states. You know, it may suit DMK's Tamil Nadu state politics to say this, but when it comes to national issues and state elections in the Hindi heartland, this is going to hurt the Congress, and that is why I think the Prime Minister's message today is that BJP needs to go very, very strongly on this Sanatan Dharma controversy and explain it in contemporary terms, that in today's day and times, how can you say for the eradication of Sanatan Dharma and compare it to things like disease like dengue and COVID?
And we had someone from the DMK, a spokesperson, also come out and talk about how only those who follow the Sanatan Dharma, those people who come from the Hindi heartland, they're illiterates, and comments like that were made. And you talk about those particular states going into elections. not so much of an attack on the DMK, but the BJP is now dragging in the Congress because they're making this about Congress a larger picture, not just for those state elections, but come 2024 as well.
Absolutely, fairly so, because the Congress has not condemned these remarks. Even RJD and Aam Aadmi Party have virtually condemned the remarks of the DMK, Mr. Stalin, as well as the other DMK leader. They have condemned it, saying religion should be respected, but Congress is not condemning it. Congress has own reasons to not condemn it, maybe, but BJP is going to milk this, and you will see with the Prime Minister giving the green signal today for everybody to go out and speak on this. You will see ministers, you will see BJP spokesperson go all out, and the three elections, I think, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh and Madhya Pradesh, and even, as you correctly say, in the run-up to 2024, we will see BJP making this a major issue that calling for the eradication of Sanatan Dharma? Are you asking for the eradication of Hinduism? Are you questioning the faith of 80% population of this country? And does the Congress, which also practices soft Hindutva in certain states, like Mr. Kamal Nath, for example, did not agree with the remarks of Modi because he knows that in Madhya Pradesh this issue will go against the Congress. But yes, Congress, for reasons best known to it at a national level, is backing the DMK. I think this is something which the BJP is going to milk, and it's going to cost the Congress in the upcoming state elections.
Compulsions of the India bloc, perhaps, which is why we're seeing these kind of diversionary, contradictory statements coming to the fore from the Congress. But Aman, thank you so much for putting that in perspective for us. There are political reactions that are pouring in thick and fast. The Prime Minister has now given the green signal. The BJP is only going to up the ante further. Listen in to some of those reactions.
देखिए, सनातन धर्म पर तो लंबी डिबेट हो सकती है। शताब्दियों से हमारे सामने ये उदाहरण है, मुगल आकर चले गए, उन्हें दमन के साथ भी वो सनातन को नष्ट नहीं कर सके। अंग्रेज मानते थे, मैकाले की रिपोर्ट इस बात का गवाह है कि हमारी सांस्कृतिक विरासतें जब तक कम नहीं तोड़ेंगे नहीं, तब तक उनको गुलाम बनाकर नहीं रखा जा सकता। वो भी चले गए। और आज जो लोग बोल रहे हैं, मैं उनसे कहता हूं कि मैं इस पर चर्चा करना नहीं चाहता। वो संविधानिक पदों पर बैठे हुए लोग हैं, वो तमिलनाडु सरकार के मंत्री हैं, उनके पिता चीफ मिनिस्टर हैं। क्या भारत के संविधान में किसी भी पूजा पद्धति को नष्ट करने का अधिकार किसी ने दिया है?
ಪ್ರಪಂಚದ ಇತಿಹಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಅನೇಕ ಧರ್ಮಗಳು ಹುಟ್ಟುಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾವೆ. ಹಿಂದೂ ಧರ್ಮ ಯಾವಾಗ ಹುಟ್ಟಿತು, ಯಾರು ಹುಟ್ಟಿಸಿದ್ರು ಹಿಂದೂ ಧರ್ಮ ಇನ್ನೂ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್ ಬಿದ್ದಿದೆ, ತೆಗೆದಿಲ್ಲ ಕ್ವಶನ್ ಮಾರ್ಕ್. ಬೌದ್ಧ ಧರ್ಮ ಈ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಹುಟ್ಟುತ್ತೆ, ಜೈನ ಧರ್ಮ ಈ ದೇಶದಲ್ಲಿ ಹುಟ್ಟುತ್ತೆ, ಹೊರಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ಇಸ್ಲಾಂ ಧರ್ಮ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಕ್ರೈಸ್ತ ಧರ್ಮ ಬಂದಿದೆ. ಈ ಎಲ್ಲದರ ವಿಶ್ಲೇಷಣೆ ಮತ್ತು ಸಾರಾಂಶ ಮನುಕುಲಕ್ಕೆ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದಾಗಬೇಕು.
कि लगातार इस पर आक्रमण क्यों हो रहा है, और मैं उनसे कहना चाहता हूं, विशेषकर मैं कांग्रेस पार्टी से, कि आपके नेता अगर मिस्टर परमेश्वर ये कहते हैं और आपके अलायंस सहयोगी उदय निधि ये कहते हैं कि हिंदू धर्म एक डिजीज है, तो मैं याद दिलाना चाहता हूं कि एटम बम के आविष्कारक रॉबर्ट ओपेनहाइमर को गीता में प्रेरणा नजर आती है। एटॉमिक स्ट्रक्चर देने वाले नील्स बोर ने अपनी किताब में लिखा है कि मैं उपनिषदों को पढ़ता था।
Payal, my colleague, now joining us live, getting us more details on this. Payal, you were the one who got this information first that came to the fore from the closed door meeting that the Prime Minister had. Now we are going to be seeing only an escalated attack from the BJP because the green signal has come from right at the top.
Yes, the green signal has come in from right at the top, and the line has also been taken very effectively. The ministers in the government, the leaders in the party have been told that you have to take the line of the constitution. The Indian constitution does not allow you to abuse any religion, does not allow you to use any religion for politics, and does not allow you to abuse any religion. So that's something which the Prime Minister has highlighted in that closed door meeting, which is of course the Council of Ministers meeting, and that's why you've seen these reactions that are now coming in. Prahlad Patel is a minister in the Modi government. He's come out and really said, and he's asked for an apology from the junior Stalin. He's also asked for an apology from the government essentially saying that when you have taken oath by the constitution, you've sworn by the constitution to become a minister in the state government, how could you speak like this? How could you make such a comment about a religion which is of course the majority religion in the country? So in the coming days and weeks, you'll see more and more voices coming up. You'll see more clamour going up as far as demanding for an apology from Udayanidhi Stalin is concerned, and also asking for him to be asked to step down for making such a comment from the post of being a minister in the state government.
And we've seen that kind of attack that has been kept as far as the DMK and Udayanidhi Stalin is concerned. But Payal, we're going to now be seeing the BJP corner the Congress and others within the India opposition alliance as well, isn't it?
Yes, of course, the DMK and the Congress party are in alliance in the state, and they are also in alliance. They have also been a part of the UPA. The question that the Congress party is being asked by the government is that you have been in power for the longest time. Would you adhere to something like this? Would you say that on one front where your leader Rahul Gandhi is talking about Muhabbat ki dukaan, on the other front you're trying to appease a particular community and you've been trying to play vote bank politics? That's the question that they've been asked, and you've seen over the last few days whether it is Amit Shah, whether it is of course JP Nadda amongst the other leaders, they've all come out and said that why is the Congress party quiet? Why is the Congress party not really condemning what is being said by the junior Stalin? And why is it that they've not come out and put out their stand very clearly? Obviously, the attack is also going to be on Mamata Banerjee, saying that she's been appeasing a certain community, and obviously it suits their vote bank politics. But no, this country is beyond vote bank politics, and that is one of the reasons the Prime Minister, while he was speaking to the Council of Ministers, also highlighted one thing very importantly, Poonam. He has said that talk about the contemporary issues, talk about the contemporary times. In the contemporary times, India is looking at Amrit Kaal. India is looking at a country which is marching towards 2047. Are these the kind of discuss and debates that we need to really have? The answer certainly is no. So obviously it's a multi-prong attack as far as the government is concerned, as far as the party is concerned on the opposition. But the principal target remains the silence of the Congress party, given the fact that Rahul Gandhi has constantly spoken about the fact that the BJP and the RSS are playing divisive politics. But what about the ranks within the opposition who are trying to do the same?
Right, so that's the parallel that's being drawn by the BJP. It is an all-out war. We'll keep a track of that. But for the moment, Payal, thank you so much for getting us the latest. We are shifting focus now to some more breaking news that's coming in, and a big step is being taken by the government as far as keeping inflation in check is concerned. We're now given to understand that an advisory has been issued by the Centre for mandatory stock disclosure of masoor dal with immediate effect. It will be mandatorily disclosed on the portal every Friday is now what we're learning. This is the information that has come out as far as ensuring prices of essentials, prices of pulses are kept under check. This is an important move as far as that is concerned. This is the release that has been put out. It goes on to talk about judicially balancing the interests of farmers vis-a-vis the consumers is also paramount. So it's not just about ensuring that that a lid is kept as far as price rise is concerned, but also that the interests of farmers is to be ensured as well. The department will not hesitate in initiating stern action against those who are trying to hurt the interests of the Indian consumers and farmers in an unscrupulous manner. That's the message that's coming to the fore. So hoarding of masoor dal, black marketing of it, all of which needs to be disclosed, all of which needs to be looked into. That's really the message that's coming to the fore as far as this directive goes. Rupashri, my colleague, joining us, getting us more details on this. Yes, Rupashri.
Well, this decision was taken after the weekly price review meeting of the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, and it has been decided that with immediate effect, all the suppliers of masoor dal will have to disclose their stock. Now, why has the government taken this decision? Number one, because when it comes to pulses, inflation has been a very big concern with the government, and the price of pulses, the manner in which it is rising also, is a big concern, not just for the government but also for consumers. Now, the government has already taken many steps in order to contain this. It has encouraged imports by reducing import duty on pulses to absolutely zero. Now, remember, India has always been dependent on imports to meet its domestic demand as far as pulses is concerned, and India always imports pulses from African countries, from Myanmar, and from Canada. So when the government wanted to build its buffer and floated tenders, they received exorbitantly high prices for those tenders, and which is why they had to cancel those tenders. Right. And then the question arose as to why are the prices so high at a time when import of pulses has gone up. And therefore, it hinted at cartelization among suppliers, which is why the government has taken this step. It is important also because it comes just ahead of the festival season.
Right, so big move there coming to the fore of great significance by the central government. Rupashri, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. We are shifting focus now to some more breaking news that's coming in, and this is coming in just ahead of the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak coming to India for the G20 summit. A significant remark coming to the fore from the British Prime Minister. He goes on to say that no form of extremism is acceptable in the United Kingdom. This is over concerns that were raised by India over activities of pro-Khalistani secessionists in the United Kingdom. We've seen the kind of separatist activities that were taking place there, the graffitis that were being put up. Under all of those circumstances, now we have a comment coming to the fore from the British Prime Minister. Siddhant, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more details. Now, Siddhant, this is just a day or two before Rishi Sunak arrives here in India, so that is an important remark coming to the fore from Rishi Sunak. Perhaps this is going to be discussed if and when there is a bilateral between the two countries as well?
Well, that's right. These are some key issues which India has been flagging off time and again. And perhaps UK has taken a very strong position, Poonam, when it comes to Khalistani extremism. I would also like to highlight that how UK has pledged £95,000 just to understand the issue of Khalistan and how to curb the growing violence on Britain's soil. Also, in fact, yesterday, our editor-in-chief Zaka Jacob interviewed Alex Ellie, the UK High Commissioner to India, and he clearly said that Khalistan issue is not India's problem; it's UK's problem. So with that level of seriousness, the government of United Kingdom is dealing with this entire Khalistani extremism issue. Also, Poonam, interestingly, this particular interview is coming at a time when we are expecting Prime Minister Rishi Sunak to land in Delhi, or perhaps arrive in Delhi with his wife Akshata Murthy on Friday late evening to participate in G20 Leaders Summit. And right before that, he has spoken to a news agency, Indian news agency in London, and he has all praises for Prime Minister Modi's leadership. He has taken a strong position when it comes to extremism, extremism in UK. Also, he has appreciated India becoming the third largest economy, and a very strong messaging which Mr. Sunak is doing, especially give messaging in terms of his roots to India. And
absolutely, but what is most important, Siddhant, is the comment that he has made as far as blocking of these extremist activities in the United Kingdom is concerned. He's gone on to say that the UK government is working closely with the Indian government to tackle this kind of pro-Khalistani extremism. The British police are fully empowered to deal with such violent acts. That's the comment that has come to the fore from the UK Prime Minister, who's going to arrive in India in a day or two ahead of the crucial G20 summit. Now, like Siddhant was also pointing out, just yesterday we spoke with the British High Commissioner on this very exact issue during CNN News 18's town hall. Listen in to what he had to tell us.
Thorny issue has been these protests. We saw the protests, the Khalistani protests outside the Indian High Commission in the UK, in London. What is the UK doing as a state to try and, not just go after those guys and make sure that the law catches up with them, but more importantly, send out the signal that, this is a question of sovereignty. It's a question of the sovereignty of India, and these are people who are wanting to break up a sovereign country, and that, it wouldn't be acceptable to the UK, it wouldn't be acceptable to India.
You're absolutely right. Just stepping back for a second, well, first of all, let me take this specific issue in hand. So, protests in India and the United Kingdom is legal, but there are restraints on it, obviously. And extremism in any form in the UK is a problem for us, and one we have to address. And that's not looking at any particular one form of extremism or another. And extremism, including Khalistani extremism, that's not an India problem. That's a UK problem. To have radicalized youth in the UK attacking this embassy of another country is not okay. So what do we do about it? First of all, if there are grounds for doing so, we arrest people. The police arrest people. They're independent, but they'll make the arrest, as we did in that case. Secondly, we increase security. That's also a signal you're sending about the importance to His Majesty's government as a protection of the diplomatic premises and the diplomats of India. Thirdly, you have to use the full tools, the full range of tools in our toolbox for how you frustrate and disrupt extremist activity. And fourthly, you increase the effort on it. And our security minister was here 3 weeks ago, and he announced we are investing more in creating a better understanding of the issue. You could then cooperate more with the Indian government so that it has consequences, and you're also sending a signal back into extremists in the UK that there is no place for extremism. So you're right, it is not okay, and we continue to think it is not okay, and more importantly, we act and message exactly on those lines.
The confirmation that came to the fore on our platform yesterday, that is something that is being reiterated from the highest offices in the United Kingdom. That is the message that is being sent out to pro-Khalistani extremists in London, in the United Kingdom, to not mess with India. UK will not take it lying down. That's the message that's coming to the fore from Rishi Sunak. Former diplomat KP Fabian now joining us here on this broadcast. So thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. In your opinion, how significant is this comment that has come to the fore from Rishi Sunak 24 to 48 hours before he lands here in Delhi?
Well, it is a significant statement indeed, but we should also recognize that recently when there was an attack on the Indian High Commission, the British security system proved itself inadequate to take care of the High Commission. But second time when it happened or was going to happen, they took proper action. So we should welcome that the United Kingdom has recognized that under the Vienna Convention, it is the responsibility of the host state to give full protection to the diplomatic missions in that state. Further, his statement that the separatist Khalistani extremists, their activities are a problem not only for India but also for UK. That is most welcome.
It is the most welcome step. We also had the UK Prime Minister go on to say that the British police is completely empowered to take any sort of action. But unfortunately, we still have seen that in the presence of police there on multiple occasions where such kind of acts have happened. A lot of them are defended under free speech and freedom of expression. Do you think that kind of sentiment is also now going to stop within the power corridors and within the administration in the United Kingdom?
Well, we have to understand that when a Prime Minister is about to visit another country, obviously he will sort of resort to language which gives the best, what shall I say, position in the eyes of the country he is going to visit. But as you correctly pointed out, this is one position that no extremism will be tolerated or permitted. But on the other hand, there is a gray area where freedom of expression and combating extremism, there is a gray area. That we have to understand.
Right, Mr. Fabian, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. The hope is certainly that the words translate into action and we do not see a repeat of what has happened in the last few months in the United Kingdom as far as pro-Khalistani sentiment is concerned. Sanatan, my colleague, continues to be with us as far as Rishi Sunak and his comments are concerned. A significant comment coming to the fore before Rishi Sunak lands here in the national capital ahead of the G20 summit. Anil Trigunyat, former diplomat, also joining us here on this broadcast. So thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. How significant, in your opinion, is this comment that's coming to the fore from Rishi Sunak? Can we expect stronger action to follow with these kind of words?
Well, I think this is reassuring to hear from them because we have seen the several incidents that have happened where the Khalistani elements have prospered in the country. That we have seen that they have been hosting various conferences. They are hosting various conferences and referendums and all kinds of things. So they need to be stopped. There have been attacks also. So now we have heard that they attacked even the Indian High Commission, as you know. So, and this was, their forces or police was missing at that time. So I think that this statement coming from Prime Minister Rishi Sunak before his arrival is quite reassuring in my view if the government is really serious and takes cognizance of India's concerns. And because, see, for any terrorism, extremism, there has to be a global effort. And that global effort cannot be selective. And therefore, I hope that what he says, they will be complying with it, they'll be following on it, and we'll be dealing with this extremism and terrorism in the way that it should be dealt with globally.
Right, we do hope that actions speak louder than words, and these the condemnation that's coming to the fore, the assurances that are coming to the fore, all of them are adhered to. Mr. Trigunia, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Former diplomat Achal Malhotra also joining us here on this broadcast. We'll try and reconnect that line, but Siddhant, my colleague, continues to be with us. Rishi Sunak, remember, is going to be in India in just a few days from now. The crucial G20 summit is going to happen. There perhaps is a bilateral with India that is going to be held on the sidelines as well. In the view of all that, the kind of comments that have come to the fore as far as pro-Khalistani sentiment in UK is concerned is extremely significant. Siddhant, are we expecting a bilateral to take place between the Prime Ministers of both the countries, and is this something that is going to be on agenda?
Absolutely, Poonam. There is a lot that can be done when it comes to relations between UK and India. And perhaps from last 2 years, trade talks are going on. 12th round of talks are already over. And, the final touch has to be given by both the sides. And trade talk is something which Rishi Sunak has been taking personal interest, and perhaps he has been speaking to Prime Minister Modi also regarding that to close it as soon as possible. So we could expect FTA between UK and India by the end of this year, and that is going to be the key issue when both sides will meet on the sidelines of G20 Leaders Summit. Also, Poonam, the relations between the two countries hit a setback when the Indian High Commission in London was attacked. But the kind of response that India got from London post that, in terms of action against those extremist groups, the arrests were made, and also the 95,000 pounds were pledged by the government of UK to study this entire issue of extremism and how to tackle it. So the response was quite assuring to the Indian side, and this is a reason that the trade talk is very much on track, and we could expect the trade talk to end somewhere before this year.
Business, trade, investment, all of it is all going to be on agenda. But the most important one, of course, is the discussion as far as ensuring a lid is kept on these kind of Khalistani, pro-Khalistani sentiments in the United Kingdom. For the moment, Siddhant, though, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. It's time for a quick break here on this edition of Nation at 5, but there's lots more lined up for you on the other side. Do stay tuned.
To become hostage of these issues, and they have said that they will push for global and more consensus agenda, and they will support India's G20 presidency as well. In fact, the Russian side has also said that they will rely on the BRICS member countries in case G7 try to push for their agenda. We have also seen Canadian President Justin Trudeau recently expressing disappointment that Ukrainian President Zelensky is not being invited to G20 summit level talks. India had made it very clear, long time back, that G20 will remain an agenda that will be focused on developmental issues, global issues of finances, climate change, or SDG goals, or women empowerment, or social justice, things that has been the core of G20 grouping, and it will not be given priorities to certain conflicts or the conflict that is happening in one part of the world. And so the security issues is something that G20 has ideally not been discussing, and India did not allow this to become a stage for Ukrainian issues to be discussed. While the after effects of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, like food security, energy security, that will of course remain be a part of major agenda that Indian presidency of G20 is going to discuss around. Prime Minister Modi will also be likely having a dinner hosted for President Biden. We know that recently Prime Minister was in Washington, where the Biden family had hosted a very special dinner as a state guest for Prime Minister Modi. And recently Prime Minister Modi was also in France to attend the Bastille Day as the chief guest of the Bastille Day celebration. And when President Macron will be in Delhi, there could be a possibility that Prime Minister Modi will have something special or some special arrangement for him over a lunch or something. Besides, there will be several bilateral meetings with world leaders. Prime Minister is going to Jakarta on 6th and 7th, where he'll be having a meeting with Indonesian President Joko Widodo, and when the President will be arriving back in Delhi to attend G20 summit level talks, there is scheduled to have a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and the Indonesian President, because Indonesia remains the part of Troika, that is Indonesia, India and Brazil, who will be hosting the G20 summit level talks next year. Lula da Silva will be coming for to represent Brazilian side, the President of Brazil. He just had his meeting on the sidelines of BRICS summit level talks in Johannesburg, also with Prime Minister Modi, and we'll have to see how those meetings will take shape when the frequency of the leaders talk will increase, and how India, Brazil, Indonesia and other part of the South, global South will become a more stronger voice in the context that they want to have some solid reforms at multilateral platforms around the world, especially in United Nations. So while G20 will remain focused on many agendas of development, issues of multilateral reforms, climate change, global security, food security is something that India is going to push for. Social justice, women empowerment is something also that Prime Minister Modi had talked in the past to be talked about at the G20 summit level talks. With all the leaders congregating in Delhi, the issues will be discussed, and one can only hope that there will emerge a consensus despite all the differences that the world leaders have had in the recent past, so that the overall progress, overall development of the world does not become hostage of one crisis happening in one part of the world. Delhi is all set to host the G20 summit level talks, when the world leaders will be arriving and discussing about the priorities, challenges, common concerns around the world, especially in the area of development and finances. President Biden of USA will be arriving most likely on 8th of September, and during those 3 days when the leadership from UK, Rishi Sunak will be coming, President Macron is also going to come on Friday most likely, and the leaders are also going to have a bilateral with Prime Minister Modi during the course of 3 days that the event will be taking place. Two presidents, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping, is not going to attend the summit level talks. The Russian President has sent Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, to represent him, while today the Chinese side have confirmed that Premier Li Qiang will be representing the Chinese delegation at the summit level talks. US President Joe Biden had 2 days ago expressed hope that there will be President Xi Jinping who will be in G20 summit level talks, and probably he was looking for an opportunity to engage with the Chinese side, but now he has expressed some disappointment after he has learned that President Xi Jinping may not be coming to Delhi, and he said that he's disappointed because in the last few months we have seen a regular or frequent engagement being pushed from the US side to have an engagement with China, so that the multiple issues in trade, commerce, finances and defense be dealt with in a more pacified way, and both sides try to engage and understand each other. And we have seen several secretaries, Secretary Blinken, Janet Yellen, recently Secretary of Commerce also went to China. So there has been multiple engagements, and probably US was looking forward to have a small window of opportunity when President Biden could have had a small bilateral with Xi Jinping or the Chinese president. It was not clear whether it was scheduled or not. But we know that with the absence of Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping, it looks like the bloc, the G20, is increasingly divided on the many issues around the world. We have heard Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova clearly saying that the G20 is being dominated by G7 plus grouping and their agenda, and they do not want G20 to become hostage of these issues, and they have said that they will push for global and more consensus agenda, and they will support India's G20 presidency as well. In fact, the Russian side has also said that they will rely on the BRICS member countries in case G7 try to push for their agenda. We have also seen Canadian President Justin Trudeau recently expressing disappointment that Ukrainian President Zelensky is not being invited to G20 summit level talks. India had made it very clear, long time back that G20 will remain an agenda that will be focused on developmental issues, global issues of finances, climate change, or SDG goals, or women empowerment, or social justice, things that has been the core of G20 grouping, and it will not be given priorities to certain conflicts or the conflict that is happening in one part of the world. And so the security issues is something that G20 has ideally not been discussing, and India did not allow this to become a stage for Ukrainian issues to be discussed. While the
Welcome back. You're watching Nation at 5 with me, Poonam Burde. Let's now get you a super exclusive scoop that we have from our neighborhood. Remember, we told you on Monday how the Pakistani army had now taken control of the economic front as well. Now we have more details of how exactly the Pakistan army chief is doing that. Pakistani army chief has now taken direct charge of the economy with setting up of an investment council, is what we have learned from our sources. Within Pakistan, within the administration of the caretaker government there, we're now learning that a special investment facilitation council that is going to be based out of Karachi has now been formed under the leadership of the Pakistani army chief, General Asim Munir. More details now trickling in of what exactly this council is going to be doing and how the Pakistani army is going to be keeping an eye on it. Here's what we have learned from our sources in Pakistan, from the administration there. We're now learning is that the army chief is in touch with UAE, Saudi and investors in Qatar. The economy in Pakistan is in complete doldrums, which is why they're now looking at friendly nations for investment proposals. Karachi has now become the hub. The Karachi Core HQ becomes the center for all of these key meetings that are going to be held with the investors, with businessmen, like we saw happen over the weekend as well. A special investment council has been formed for faster clearance, so that when there are proposals that are on the table, there is no time wasted in dilly-dallying and the money comes in right away. That's really the strategy that the army chief is planning on playing. The Council for Middle Eastern and Chinese investors has now been formed. The focus is going to be on these two parts. China, of course, a fair weather ally of Pakistan, and many friendly countries within the OIC as well. Army officers are going to be giving PowerPoint presentations. So the army has completely taken over as far as restructuring of the economy is concerned, as far as how pulling out of Pakistan will happen out of this economic mess. There is an assurance that's coming to the fore as well, as far as investment worth billions of dollars is concerned. The Pakistani army believes that this council will be able to get in the money that is required to pull Pakistan out of this economic crisis. The focus is going to be on corporate farming, on mining, minerals and the IT sector. That is what we've now learned from our sources within the administration there. The Pakistani army chief himself overseeing this entire operation, not leaving anything to chance, not leaving anything to the caretaker civilian government that is in place there. Anand Narasimhan, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more details, putting this in perspective. Now, it's no secret, Anand, that it is the army, in fact, that calls the shots and not really the civilian government. Economy is something that the army chief has now taken personal interest in.
Yes, it is. And good evening to all our viewers. And Puram, one must understand that Pakistan is technically under military rule. It's under martial rule. Only thing is that it's not actively on paper. On paper, it is shown as a caretaker civilian government because elections are due. But these elections are not going to be held. And the Election Commission of Pakistan has said the elections cannot be held before February next year. Now, technically, in that sense, for the next 6 to 8 months, Pakistan is under martial law without saying it actively, or without a general or an army chief sitting on the chair as president, because what they have done is they have decided that there will not only be a caretaker prime minister, there will also be a caretaker president. Both are seemingly members of the military establishment. Asim Munir becomes the all-powerful, and this entire taking control of the economy or taking control of things is a PPP, is a CCP or a PLA model, where once the military decides that this investment has to happen and it will happen here, land will be done, muscle power will be done, given, and everything will be one window. It will be a single window shop. That is the army chief's office. And so Karachi becomes the headquarters, GOC there, GHQ there, and Karachi headquarters of the Pakistan. will become the financial hub and all investments will be rooted there. Now, this is being done in the garb of reinvigorating the Pakistan economy or restructuring it. But more importantly, the army is now going to embed, and army people are going to embed themselves into core investments also, be it farming, be it the IT structure, or be it minerals and mines. And all of this now will be done under quasi-military control. So tomorrow, even if there is a civilian government that comes back, what is the guarantee that these controls or these investments will move away from army control and will go back to the civilian government? Investors now will have to deal directly with the army. Earlier, there was always a question as to who do we deal with, the government or with the army or the military establishment. Now it's very clear it's the military establishment with which you got to deal. They are the ones who are going to get richer. There will be more army generals, more army personnel who will make millions now out of these investments, and there will be brazen use of force, absolute abuse of authority. Whether the Pakistan army is going to get, Pakistan economy is going to get restructured and reinvigorated, we'll have to wait and watch. But the Pakistan military cachet and the military coffers and the Pakistan deep state establishment coffers soon will start ringing because they will ensure that the investors get their due land is cleared for them, factories are set up for them, and they will try and showcase to people that it's the mercy of the army or the might of the army that is actually bringing them food on the table. So this is quite literally the army and the military establishment there in Pakistan, the deep state, re-establishing its, tightening its grip on the Pakistan civilian population, which just 4 or 5 months ago had broken out in outright unrest and revolt against the military establishment under Imran Khan, led by Imran Khan.
Right, Anand, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. There is clarity, yes, that you now have to deal with the army. There is no more shadow boxing as far as who really calls the shots in Pakistan. Patikrit Payne also joining us here on this broadcast. Patikrit, how do you read this? The army chief there taking complete control of what happens to this economic crisis that Pakistan faces and how to deal with it. But how do you think the investors are going to look into this, private investors especially, that they will have to deal with the army on getting these things done?
Well, first of all, I think it's a de facto military coup. It's a soft military coup that is happening, and they're taking it over through the back door. Secondly, I think so far as the outcome of the economy after this is concerned, they would probably do the same as they did with the Pakistan Space Research Agency, which is Superco, which has terribly failed vis-a-vis the success of ISRO. I think Pakistan, armed forces already had owned the country. It was always said that countries have an army, and in case of Pakistan, it is the army which has a country. Now they are actually taking over the economy, which would only mean that they would deploy their own top generals to run the economic affairs, which I don't think is going to restore any kind of confidence. There are two reasons for this. Number one of the fundamental conditions that IMF had put to the Pakistani government in terms of fiscal discipline and reducing fiscal gap problems they have is about reducing the expenditure on the armed forces. Now, the profligacy that the armed forces of Pakistan resort to, that certainly is not going to come down. That is only going to increase, which means the problems are not going to get sorted out. Secondly, when it comes to, organizations like Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan or other organizations which are based in Balochistan, they look at the Pakistan army as their enemy number one. This means that when Pakistan army takes over the economy, that the possibility of Tehreek-e-Taliban then attacking economic installations, which probably as of yet they were avoiding, cannot be ruled out in future. Third, it would only mean that the budget for the army would keep on growing up. They would certainly not cut down the budget of the army for bringing in fiscal prudence. That means the downfall of Pakistan's economy is going to go even further. It might create more problems, but so far as problems are concerned, that is not a problem in Pakistan. It's a new normal. They've got used to it. How low they would go, it's a very big question mark. Whether IMF in future would negotiate with the Pakistani government, which has been, or the economic ministries, which will be run by the army generals, that is the bigger question mark. But so far as Pakistan army is concerned, let me tell you one thing, they have secured their own future. They now would control the coffers. They would make sure all the money which they would require for their own luxury and necessities and siphoning, that will not be compromised at all. The rest of the country is already in hell. There is nowhere else they can go. They don't care about that anymore. And it also vindicates that the Pakistan
democratically elected government or whatever you call it are absolutely in sham in terms of their ability to bring in stringent fiscal reforms. They cannot do it because if they had to do it, the first target should have been and would have been the Pakistan deep state, which have refused, and that is the reason they are taking over, so that no action is taken against them.
Absolutely. So it'll be interesting to see the turn of events that take place in Pakistan. But Patrick Payne, thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18 and sharing your perspective. Let's shift now focus to some more breaking news that's coming in, and this is to do with the G20 summit that India is hosting over this weekend. We now have information that's coming to the fore that India, as the president, as the chair of the G20 this year, has convinced all the members that cryptocurrency should be on the agenda. That is a big breakthrough that has come to the fore as far as the G20 agenda goes. Pallavi, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more details. Pallavi, what else have you gathered from your sources? How exactly was this consensus reached?
Well, as we all know, cryptocurrency is a dark, unknown world, and this is something which, in a sense, should bind all the countries together. No country can work in isolation. And even as the Indian government is working and tweaking at the cryptocurrency law, which we are expected to come up in Parliament anytime soon, possibly in the winter session, government sources are telling us is that one achievement of India's presidency of G20 has been that they have been able to convince the other G20 countries that the cryptocurrency should be put on the agenda. What does this necessarily mean? There were certain reservations as far as few countries are concerned, but ultimately all of them were convinced. And what was used to convince them was the fact that it cannot exist in isolation. This has important macroeconomic ramifications. There are criminal ramifications open to misuse as well. Therefore, every country is free to frame its own cryptocurrency rule or law. But at the end of the day, all the countries need to be working together in tandem. And therefore, as a result of India's efforts as a president of G20, they have managed to put this on the agenda. So when the thrashing out discussion begins on the trade and economic policies on 9th and 10th, one is hopeful that some kind of a finalization and agreement would come among the G20 countries on what kind of a common agreement or law we can have to ensure that it's not open to misuse, and there's a certain amount of regulation and monitoring which takes place.
Right, so monitoring, regulation is something that we could look at, because as far as cryptocurrency is concerned, Pallavi, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as India's stand goes, we're neither completely for it in terms of legitimizing it, neither are we completely for banning it, isn't it?
Yeah, there was an initial hesitation when cryptocurrency became extremely popular, but if you've heard the Prime Minister also, when he has spoken in the past, so has the Finance Ministry and ministers, they've all accepted the fact that cryptocurrency is here to stay. It is very much a part of reality. While it cannot be completely discouraged, it cannot be encouraged minor certain amount of regulation. So we have been working on the cryptocurrency legislation for quite some time. A certain amount of regulation coming in from either an RBI or some kind of a monitoring agency which is similar to RBI is what the Indian government has looked at. And therefore, while these negotiations and many rounds of G20 finance meetings were taking place, India as president has managed to at least convince these countries that let's put it on the agenda. This is a very important economic consequence. It can have important macroeconomic global consequences. Therefore, it should not be left unregulated, untouched, and there needs to be some kind of an understanding among the countries of the world on how to regulate and monitor, because India does not live in isolation. No country for that matter, Poonam, lives in isolation. They all have to work together. What happens in my country, for example, on cryptocurrency front can have ramification in other countries as well. And therefore, it was important and critical to put it on the agenda so as some kind of a global or at least a G20 regulation and monitoring can take place.
Right, Pallavi, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. We are seeing that the agenda for the G20 summit has been set. We're seeing several issues that are coming up. Cryptocurrency is another addition to that. Whether or not there is consensus on this is something that we will keep an eye out on. But for the moment, it is time for a quick break here on this edition. Back in just a few minutes.
Certain conflict like food security, energy security, that will of course remain be a part of major agenda that Indian presidency of G20 is going to discuss around. Prime Minister Modi will also be likely having a dinner hosted for President Biden. We know that recently Prime Minister was in Washington, where the Biden family had hosted a very special dinner as a state guest for Prime Minister Modi. And recently Prime Minister Modi was also in France to attend the Bastille Day as the chief guest of the Bastille Day celebration. And when President Macron will be in Delhi, there could be a possibility that Prime Minister Modi will have something special or some special arrangement for him over a lunch or something. Besides, there will be several bilateral meetings with world leaders. Prime Minister is going to Jakarta on 6th and 7th, where he'll be having a meeting with Indonesian President Joko Widodo. And when the President will be arriving back in Delhi to attend G20 summit level talks, there is scheduled to have a meeting between Prime Minister Modi and the Indonesian President, because Indonesia remains the part of Troika, that is Indonesia, India and Brazil, who will be hosting the G20 summit level talks next year. Lula da Silva will be coming for to represent Brazilian side, the President of Brazil. He just had a meeting on the sidelines of BRICS summit level talks in Johannesburg, also with Prime Minister Modi, and we'll have to see how those meetings will take shape when the frequency of the leaders talk will increase, and how India, Brazil, Indonesia and other part of the global south will become a more stronger voice in the context that they want to have some solid reforms at multilateral platforms around the world, especially in United Nations. So while G20 will remain focused on many agendas of development, issues of multilateral reforms, climate change, global security, food security is something that India is going to push for. Social justice, women empowerment is something also that Prime Minister Modi had talked in the past to be talked about at the G20 summit level talks. With all the leaders congregating in Delhi, the issues will be discussed, and one can only hope that there will emerge a consensus despite all the differences that the world leaders have had in the recent past, so that
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has given a big interview to Money Control, a very, very detailed interview, his first big digital interview before the G20 summit. What does the Prime Minister say? I would basically split it into 5 parts. The Prime Minister, obviously the big headline from the interview is that India's growth is good for the world. PM playing a very, very strong case for India's growth trajectory, how India will become the 3rd largest economy in the world, the roadmap towards the same, but also stressing that India's growth is not just good for Indians, it is also good for the world. India matters on the global stage. And also the Prime Minister speaking in a big way about the India's role in a world which is driven by geopolitical uncertainties because of the Russia-Ukraine war, the need for global credible institutions like the WTO, like the United Nations, and the dangers from financially irresponsible policies like the freebies which are being offered by political parties in India. The Prime Minister interview basically split, I think, major 5 issues. India and the G20, how India's G20 presidency has been one which has been truly democratic, events held in over 60 cities, over 220 events. The G20 event was taken out of the traditional like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and taken even to tier 2 cities, even in fact every state capital to UTs, and how it became truly a symbol of India's diversity. PM also speaking about the global south, how India has become the shoulder for the global south and how India has become the voice on the global stage for the global south. In fact, India has been stressing in a big way for the inclusion of the African Union also into the G20. When the European Union can be there, why can't the African Union also be there? And PM laying a strong case for the developing nations of the African Union and other developing nations of global south to find a space and a voice in the G20 structure. PM also speaking a lot about the digital public infrastructure of India, how India has achieved new records in digital public infrastructure. Just now we saw last month how UPI has reached a global high, a historic high of nearly 10 billion UPI transactions in a month. That also the Prime Minister has spoken about. PM has also spoken about reining in inflation, how inflation has become a major issue in the world. Global inflation has at highest levels due to after the COVID pandemic and also due to the Russia-Ukraine war. But India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi saying to Money Control that how his government has helped rein in inflation. In fact, he even mentioned to the recent promise made and the decision taken on Raksha Bandhan, where the price of LPG cylinders has been brought down by ₹200 for all consumers. The PM also speaking about the roadmap to the third largest economy, saying it's a matter of great pride that India has risen now to the fifth largest economy in the world, and what will be the roadmap for India going ahead to be the third largest economy in the world. Let's first speak about the role the PM spoken about India and G20, when he says that it is important for me to speak a little bit about the backdrop in which India became the president of the G20. There was a pandemic followed by a conflict situation. It posed a lot of questions to the world. It had pushed the world into an era of uncertainty and instability. How India has played a role in its G20 presidency to find a solution to these issues. The PM shows it's well known that the approach of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas and Sabka Prayas in the country, a model that his government has followed in the last 9 years. This, he says, is the guiding principle for global relations as well going ahead. Very important word by the Prime Minister when he says that India's model of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vishwas, Sabka Prayas has been acknowledged and adopted globally. He also says that the G20 presidency of India is the people's presidency. How people have taken the lead in this. He has said that how we have seen earlier that in historical circles of power, there was a certain reluctance to go beyond Delhi and even Vigyan Bhavan for that example. But he said not just the G20, earlier also, since he has come to power, the visits of foreign leaders, various other international summits have been held outside Delhi. Foreign leaders have been taken to places like Varanasi, to Shanti Niketan. Various examples he has cited, like the former German Chancellor Angela Merkel. The Prime Minister was hosted in Bangalore. French President Emmanuel Macron and then Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe visited Varanasi. A number of examples that the PM has cited about how the G20 became a totally people's event and also how it was a democratized kind of an event, this time India's G20 presidency. Speaking about the global south, he says that after many decades of instability in 2014, the people of India voted for a stable government that had a clear agenda for development. Very important word for the Prime Minister. He putting forward a case that how stable governments, when elected with decisive mandates, lead to
Welcome back. You're watching Nation at 5 and we have some more breaking news that's coming in after Sonia Gandhi wrote a letter to Prime Minister Narendra Modi over the special session of Parliament asking what exactly the agenda was. Now we have a response coming to the fore. A letter has been shot off by the Parliamentary Affairs Minister in response to Sonia Gandhi. This letter has been accessed by CNN News 18. This is the letter that you see on your screens and I'm just going to read out the operative paragraphs of this, of what the response of the central government and of the Parliamentary Affairs Minister is to the Congress and to Sonia Gandhi specifically. This is what Prahlad Joshi, the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, goes on to say. He says, संसद सत्र बुलाने से पहले ना कभी राजनीतिक दलों से चर्चा की जाती है और ना कभी मुद्दों पर चर्चा की जाती है. Going on to say that there is no precedent that before you call a session, you would give out the agenda or even talk about holding consensus between all of the opposition parties. He then goes on to say that महामहिम राष्ट्रपति जी के सत्र बुलाने के बाद और सत्र आरंभ होने से पहले सभी दलों के नेताओं की बैठक होती है जिसमें संसद में उठने वाले मुद्दों और कामकाज पर चर्चा होती है. This is he's talking about the all-party meeting that is held before every session to build consensus as far as that special session goes. Even then going on to talk about the issues that Sonia Gandhi has raised in her letter. Prahlad Joshi then going on to say, आपने जिन मुद्दों का उल्लेख किया है वह सभी मुद्दे अविश्वास प्रस्ताव पर चर्चा के दौरान कुछ ही समय पूर्व मॉनसून सेशन में उठाए गए थे. Going on to say that all the issues that you want to talk about now have already been spoken of. That was the no trust debate that took place, during which many opposition leaders walked out. So the response there coming to the fore from the Parliamentary Affairs Minister to Sonia Gandhi's pointed questions to the Prime Minister. My colleague now joining us, getting us more details on this. We've accessed this letter that is coming to the fore, Payal, as far as the centre stand is concerned. So the only time that we'll find out what's on agenda is perhaps one day prior to the session.
Well, yes, Parliamentary Affairs Minister replying to letters that Sonia Gandhi had written to the Prime Minister, essentially questioning the Prime Minister's decision to call for a session and also listing out 9 demands or 12 demands that the opposition parties really had made. So a point-by-point rebuttal coming in from the Parliamentary Affairs Minister saying that it is the prerogative of the President of India to allow for a session to be called and it is the prerogative of the government to have the session in place as well. This has been something which has been part of the Parliament democracy, has been part of the Parliament process, so there is no rule which has been violated Also, the fact that Sonia Gandhi's questioned the inaction in Manipur, inflation amongst the other issues, all of these issues were discussed at length during the no confidence motion, which was moved by the Congress party's Gaurav Gogoi. So that's a response that Prahlad Joshi has really brought in over there. He said that there has been no precedence whatsoever. At an appropriate time, the agenda of the parliament or any session is always declared. That's been something which has been happening. So obviously, over here, Prahlad Joshi blunting the attack of the opposition party. Remember, yesterday the opposition parties got together. They had a meeting. Floor leaders met at the residence of Mallikarjun Kharge, and they came up with this letter that Sonia Gandhi would post. And the response to Sonia Gandhi, interestingly, is coming in not from the Prime Minister, but from the Parliamentary Affairs Minister.
Right, so what's on agenda? We still have no idea, but the opposition has decided to attend this special session, the 5-day session that is being called from the 18th to the 22nd of this month. It is going to be in the new Parliament building is also what we've learnt, Payal. There is going to be no zero hour, there is going to be no question hour. The opposition is going to be in attendance, but are we going to be seeing any sort of productivity really, because we saw the kind of ruckus and pandemonium that was witnessed in the last session?
Well, it will be difficult to predict this as of now, but the appeal that the government has made, and that's why Parliamentary Affairs Minister Prahlad Joshi, when he put out that tweet saying that there will be a special session of Parliament, he said that this is the Amrit Kaal and we hope for a debate and we hope for a discussion as well. The prerogative, of course, of the government is to make sure that they are able to pass legislation as well, but as of now, Poonam, nobody knows what is the agenda of the Parliament session, why is it being called. But what the government is saying, and even in this letter that Prahlad Joshi sent to Sonia Gandhi, he's appealed to the opposition parties that they would not create ruckus and not create issues out of nowhere and come and attend the Parliament session. We're still awaiting the agenda. As far as the hosting of the session is concerned, we're still waiting for confirmation because there are various news doing the rounds. We are also given to understand that possibly on the 18th, you would have the session begin in the old Parliament building, and in the 19th, after the second half, you would move to the new Parliament building, and there's likely to be some sort of a discussion which will happen in the Central Hall of Parliament on the 19th morning. So all of these details are creeping in right now. We're still waiting for an official confirmation, which we're given to understand will come out in some time. But yes, the government has once again appealed to the opposition parties not to do politics over the entire issue.
Right.
Prahlad Joshi over there calling out to Sonia Gandhi, saying that yours has been a government which has been in power for so long, so you know the norms, you know the rules, you know the
right. Going on to talk about how there is absolutely no precedent as far as consulting stakeholders is concerned or as far as discussing the agenda goes. But Payal, thank you so much for getting us the latest on that. It's a wrap from my side here on this edition of Nation at 5. Griha joins you next with Viewpoint.
It's India's G20 presidency year.
The global south will shine.
The test of its multipolarity rhetoric.
Countdown to the big ticket event. Complete transformation for Delhi.
Unprecedented capital security.
Delhi becomes the world's diplomatic hub.
A 4-day lockdown and watertight security.
Quick response teams in place. World embraces India's youth.
As top world leaders come calling.
Vishwamitra leads global agenda.
Coverage like no others. Only on CNN News 18.
Good evening and a warm welcome. I'm Griha and you're watching Viewpoint. We begin this evening with talking about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's mega exclusive interview with Network 18 ahead of the G20 summit. While reiterating the G20 motto of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, or One Earth, One Family, One Future, the Prime Minister, while speaking to Money Control, went on to underline that very approach in India over the last 9 years. One that the Prime Minister claimed has yielded great dividends in bringing the country together to pursue progress